Well, I'm last. Awesome. And the worst thing about being last is having to sit here and listen to everyone else's amazing careers that they've had after leaving the audio research group. You guys are an incredibly tough act to follow. And for someone like myself who's sort of, in terms of his professional career, is very, very infantile in his professional career, is really happy and excited to look forward to the years that are going to come, because there's so many of you have moved on from working with John and Stan to have amazing careers, and very different careers as well. So to start off, and I only just found out that I'd have to actually get up here and talk maybe an hour ago, so bear with me. Someone didn't read the whole email. I don't know who didn't do that. So to start off I always loved audio. I used to play with my uncle, my mother's brother that was living with us. He had a stereo system, and I used to play like his old Kiss albums, and I had Michael Jackson's Thriller, and it was fantastic. And he had a really great stereo system, and then I finally plugged the TV into it, and I'm like, wow, movies sound great. And then I finally had my first job, and I was cutting grass at a Catholic cemetery for a summer, which was super spooky. No, I'm just kidding. Not even close to as spooky as you think. But the entire summer's worth of earnings, what I did was I bought my first home theater system. I bought a Kenwood system, amp, cassette player, which was useless, because the next, I think CDs were out for like a while now, and I never bought another cassette. And a CD player, and to this day I still have the speakers. The amp died. I still have the amp. I don't know why I still have the amp, but it's dead. I lug it. It
can be fixed.
Exactly. That's what I think in my mind, but I'm never going to get around to it. I know that in my heart, but I still, in my head, I know I can fix it. So from a very early time, so it went from that, home theater, then my first car. I had a 1985 Ford Tempo in 2005. So the car was like 15 years old, sat in a garage, and the speaker system was awful. And so then I started looking into building my own subwoofer, stereo system, and started tuning it, reading different articles on frequency and things like that. And that was in the midst of me being in university, doing a physics degree and going, oh God, what the hell am I going to do with this degree? It's not really kind of going anywhere for me. Like, we're learning a lot about quantum mechanics. We're learning a lot about mechanics. It's not really, but then we did waves and optics. Oh, now all these frequency terms and crossover, now they're starting to make sense to me. And then I sat down with a math professor of mine. Before I sat down with the math professor, I sat down with the physics advisor, who was our career counselor, and I'm like, what am I going to do with my physics degree when I'm done? She's like, well, she was very cheery about it. She was very positive about it. She's like, well, there's teaching, and there's grad school. I look at her, I'm like, okay, so I got two options. Thanks, that was a big help. But so then I sat down with a math professor that I really enjoyed in university. His name was Herb Coons, and I thank him to this day because he actually pointed me towards John and Stan. You know what, there's this group in the physics department at Waterloo, they do audio research, and I'm like, great, audio, good, I like this stuff, I like building speakers, I like doing this stuff. So I got in touch with Stan, and then put me in touch with John, because physics goes with physics, I guess. And that's how this all kind of kicked off. And then my research, John gave me a number of different potential topics, but one ended up being in home theater room equalization. So we were equalizing bass resonances in rooms, and so for most of you probably know there's problems with bass resonances in rooms, and he had come across a PhD student in Denmark that had done work in equalizing those using multiple subwoofers in rooms by creating plane waves and then rear canceling them at the back of the room with another set of subwoofers. So you'd have a set of subwoofers in the front of the room, have another set in the back of the room that would create an inverted signal that was delayed, speed of sound, length of the room, you could figure it out, 344 meters per second. And so using that method, you could completely cancel all of your low frequency resonances. And I wrote a simulation program to prove that, and along the way we did some other things with the source model, which I think are still really important, we should write up. And just continue working. But like one of the really neat things about working, and me and Scott were talking about this earlier, and I really wanted to tell this story, was when we were at the 125th Audio Engineering Society convention. I was presenting, me and Scott were both presenting papers there. And this really kind of demonstrated how humble John and Stan were, is that, you know, we had been working with John and Stan for a year, and, you know, we're like, yeah, these guys are great, you know, we're working well, and, you know, they're great to learn from. But then we're on the show floor, and John's giving a talk on basic acoustics, and we're like, okay, great, we're gonna go. He's our advisor. Let's go. And as we're standing around, kind of like, you know, we're not in a hurry. We're like, okay, you know, most of the talks, there's been tons of room. So, but we're standing around. We're kind of waiting to head there. But like, we hear whispers everywhere. John's giving a talk. John's giving a talk. And then we're like, what's going on? And then we finally grabbed someone, a colleague that we had seen talking with you. I can't remember his name. And we're like, you know, why is there this buzz for John's basic acoustic talk? And he's like, well, you know, do you understand? He answered, he's like, do you understand who John and Stan are? And so, like, coming from just physics, not knowing anything about audio or being in the audio industry very long, he pointed out to us that Stan had been the president of the Audio Engineering Society at one point, and then John at the time was the editor of the journal. And so me and Scott had absolutely no idea that we were working with, we knew we were working with really great professors and great advisors, but we didn't understand how important they were to this industry. And that was kind of a neat, we both did like a double take and looked at each other. We're like, wow, we're really privileged to be working under these two guys, because they mean a lot to this industry and people are really excited to hear what they have to say. So when John was giving a talk, that was probably one of the few talks that I saw that were absolutely packed. And that was really cool. So working with them was absolutely fantastic. And it was probably the best, you know, again, I'm still fledgling. This was probably the best part of my career to date. I still collaborate with John on a couple things. He's helped me a lot of the things that's come out of learning from John and Stan. I've been able to apply in almost everything. So I've had an interesting career after the audio engineering group. I even had the privilege of working underneath Rob Stevens, who was a former student. So that was an extra bonus, was being able to sort of like get like a second generation education underneath him as well. But like it's always been like, no matter what I did, I was doing acoustical consulting for a little bit, then I was doing sales in audio for a little bit, and then even afterwards I found myself in the water infrastructure. We were doing acoustic testing for on underground water mains, and that was actually really interesting, because there was like a lot of correlation techniques that were happening there, filtering, and it really allowed me to flex my muscles on a lot of the things I learned with Stan and John, and it's just, it really allowed me to see, like, you know, it's not just audio, but a lot of these different things come into play. And I was even interviewing with a company that was doing imaging, and they were solving things with. We were talking about dither, which I learned from Stan, and they were doing autocorrelation functions, which were a big thing for audio, but it was applied to imaging. And you can see how I'm rambling on, but I think at the point I'm trying to get across is everything I've learned from them and continue to learn from them, I'm able to apply in a lot of different areas, and it's been a huge influence on my rather short career, but I'm hoping to have something similar to what you all have. And I look forward to and thank you guys so much.